All right. Hello, hello. Merry Christmas, everyone. Welcome to the Fans Huddle podcast. Chris and Derek, daytime show. How are we feeling?
Oh,
Great.
good. It's Christmas Eve. We are doing an afternoon show here, so hopefully everybody's sober, which I think we are. Maybe a little hungover, but sober nonetheless.
Don't know who you're talking about.
I I think there's a lot to talk about. I do want to thank anybody who subscribed or watched our episode here in the last couple of weeks. Looks like we got a lot more views, a lot more. We got some comments I think we're going to talk about, but
Yeah.
as long as you're watching for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, however long, we really appreciate it, and we're going to keep this thing rolling. Hey.
Shout out. Chris is the shout out master. I like it.
Well, I want to, it's like we do this for fun. We're all brothers-in-law, and it's just three regular guys talking about our opinions about sports. It's all unfiltered. It's our real opinions. We're not doing anything for likes or comments or anything like that, but we appreciate it from everybody. And whenever y'all want to contribute or chime in or, tell us your thoughts on what we're doing or want us to talk about anything, let us know. I think we'd be more than happy to talk about it, won't we, Mark?
Absolutely. And on that, I think we can talk about our first comment on our video. So shout out to it looks like D'Anthony Harris 9334. His comment, "Welp, that Clemson comment didn't age well." So I'm gonna hand it over to Derek. You had predicted a Clemson upset, and you know what? The first drive, anything was possible, but they faded, and the better team won. But I'll give you a chance to respond, Derek.
Hey, you're right. I went on a limb there. I thought Clemson could pull an upset. I was wrong. They started off, like you said, first drive went really well, and then after that, kind of went downhill. They kind of made it, kind of got some points there in the end to make it somewhat of a game. But yeah, I was wrong. Sometimes I go with my gut and I say, hey, like I just feel this is going to happen, and it didn't. So thanks for calling me out. I'm going to own that. I'm going to own it, and I had it completely wrong. And Texas had a great victory over Clemson.
I think though, out of all the games, that was the closest.
That was the closest one.
Yeah,
they got to within a score, Clemson, but yeah, fell away at the end. We got a lot to talk about for the college playoffs. I know Derek was not happy over the weekend.
Derek has some strong opinions on that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
it was a weird one because we talked it up for so long, and maybe overhyped it a little bit. It was disappointing from a perspective of close games, but just from a playoff perspective, still like the home teams, the environment, I thought were really good. There was a good vibe around. Just unfortunately, the games weren't as good. So let's start it with Friday night, Notre Dame and Indiana. Indiana was the one team that I was on the fence about being in these playoffs. Notre Dame as well hadn't really beaten anyone notable, but had been looking really good. And I don't know, it was a slow game. It wasn't high quality, but I think given the conditions and the atmosphere, I think Notre Dame handled themselves pretty well and ran away with the victory. And that was 10 points in the end, but it was pretty much over after the first quarter for sure. Guys, what do you think of Notre Dame? Are they a serious contender here?
I mean, it's hard to say against Indiana. I just feel like when you're talking about Indiana, that coach, like he makes you want to believe in that team so bad, right? I mean, he just talks it up, says the right thing, does the right thing, and then his players just can't cash the check that he's writing. And this game was 27-17, but it was a lot further apart than that, right? This final score was not indicative of like the outcome of that game. So when you talk about Notre Dame, they still haven't really played anybody. They look good on the big stage. I think they're used to these moments. And if you look at the line, right, Georgia, Notre Dame, it's Georgia -2. So, I mean, basically Vegas thinks it's going to be a very close game. So I'm not going to argue with that. I still think Notre Dame, this is the game where I think they can prove it, that they're a legit, title contender, in my opinion.
Yeah. Derek?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Chris. It's hard to gauge it against Indiana, but I am looking forward to the matchup. I think it's going to come down to who can run the ball the best in that game. You know what I mean? Who can outgain on the run game? Because Gunnar Stockton, obviously we know the Carson Beck injury. He's going to need some help from that running game, and so it's all going to be won in the trenches. So it's going to see who can outlast. But I'm hoping for a really good game. I told Chris this the other day, like I was disappointed in these first round matchups. And at the end of the day, I'm a college football fan, and I want to see good football games.
Yeah.
We didn't really get that. So we'll see. I think it's just going to be one of the, like I said, it's going to depend on who runs the ball the best in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Notre Dame ran the ball really well on
And then
Friday night.
Georgia being a favorite with a quarterback that's never started a game before. I mean, that's got to be kind of telling into itself too. I was really interested to see when this line opened up what it would be, and I think Georgia was a 1-point favorite, I think, and now it's opened up to 2.
It was flipped, I believe. It was Notre Dame opened up as a favorite.
No, so what actually happened was they had the option to bet on the game before Notre Dame had played. So they were like, if Notre Dame wins, they were a 3-point favorite after the game. So when it officially opened, Georgia opened as favorite. But so that's telling that the game itself, people weren't as impressed with Notre Dame as what they thought they were, I guess. I do want to shout out Indiana, though. I know you said their coach talks them up, but I didn't realize they were mentioning it on commentary and on College Game Day that they're the least winningest team in college football history. So this was a bit of a surprise season for them. They went 11-1 heading into, or 11-2 heading into the playoffs, and so good for them. I know there's a debate if they should have been there or not, but it's been a while since Indiana has been competitive. So good for them. And yeah, their coach, I love their coach. I mean, he talks a bit of poop. Sorry. Hopefully that word doesn't get us canceled. But he talks a lot, and he went on College Game Day. I thought it was hilarious. He went on College Game Day. All these Indiana fans are behind him, and he just went out there. I was like, yeah, we don't just beat top 25 teams. We destroy top 25 teams. And like, he talks a lot, puts a bit of pressure on his team. But I mean, he made it competitive, and I appreciated that. All right, very cold that day as well, which heads us into Saturday. SMU and Penn State, the second game, also very cold.
Speaking of teams that shouldn't have been there.
Speaking of teams that shouldn't have been there, we were debating about this over the weekend. But SMU, yeah, blown out of the park. This is another game that was done by the first quarter, not just because of the score, but just you could just see the way they were playing, and 2 pick sixes. SMU just looked completely outmatched, and Penn State looked very, very good. What is this? Was Penn State really good, or was SMU really bad? What are we thinking?
Give this one to you, man.
I think SMU did not belong in the college football playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge talent gap. They're overmatched. They were oversized. I'm sorry, guys. I knew I wanted good games, but I deep down I knew this was going to happen. And SMU was just I'm not saying they're a bad team, but they're not in that blue blood programs. Okay, they're just not, and they're not going to hold up to a Penn State, a Georgia, a Notre Dame, Ohio State. It could have been any of them.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't. It wasn't going to happen, and I feel bad for them. I know they had a lot of excitement going on for the first 2 minutes of that game. After that, reality set in. And the SMU fans were sitting there saying,
So talking about that,
top 12.
So what do you think is, I know you and Mark had kind of had a disagreement about this, but so what do you think is the right way to go going forward? Do you think this is the last time a team like that gets a chance to go into the playoff, or do you think the college committee is going to do it the same way next year?
I hope they don't do it the same way. I really don't, because this is a perfect example of what we saw, that first round, horrible matchups. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you win 11 games. If you don't play anyone, wins do not matter.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather take a 9-win team that played a tough schedule and lost to top-ranked teams, deserve to be in that top 12 playoff, versus a 11-win team that didn't play anyone. So, that's where this is kind of, I understand everybody wants these interesting matchups, and it's nice to have people, these smaller schools or schools that don't get a lot of publicity. Yeah, that's great. But as a college football fan, it really sucks. And I don't like seeing those games. And I was very disappointed, obviously.
Yeah.
And that's my take on it.
Yeah, and my disagreement with you wasn't about if they should be there or not. But the mistake for me wasn't that the committee put them in. The mistake for me was that the committee had them ranked ahead of the ACC championship game. They should never have been ranked where they were. If you look at their schedule, the only ranked team that they played before Clemson was BYU, and they lost. So how did you have them in the top 12 regardless? Now, once you made the ACC championship game as a ranked team, I don't think that a team that's not playing that weekend can jump you because you lost. I don't like the chance. I don't like that making that you can be punished for making that game. So for me, the mistake wasn't that. The mistake was that they were ranked heading into that game. They shouldn't have been. I mean, they lost one game all year. It was to BYU, and every one of their wins was against unranked opponents. So I don't know how you had them so high. To be honest with you, that's the mistake.
Yeah, and Mark, I'm not arguing. Like, I guess, I understand exactly what you're saying. According to how things are set up, they had to take the right teams playing. You know what I mean? The way they've designed it, but there's going to have to be changes in the rules of how or within the guidelines of how they've created this thing, because obviously you're going to have to allow teams that have more losses than other teams because they are just simply a better football team and more competitive and more and a better football team. At the end of the day, we want the best football teams in the top 12, not so necessarily the most deserving, but the best.
Yeah.
And we didn't get that this year.
Yeah, what college football needs to realize is that the diehard college football fans, you're watching these games no matter what, okay? But I was talking to Mark earlier. I was like, Mark, you catch the Packers game last night? Mark's like, absolutely not, right? I watched every minute of it because I'm a diehard Packers fan. But I would not expect any casual football fan to watch that terrible game that was played last night, right? They expanded this playoffs to get casual fans who just want competitive games, right? I mean, I couldn't watch some of these games after the halftime because I just knew they were over. So when they're trying to expand their base and expand their, their brand and expand their viewership, they have to have more competitive games in the first round. And I guess my question is, how do you, like, I don't know how you do that. I guess, if you, I just think it's going to be hard for them to take a lot of 3-loss teams over 1-loss teams. I just don't know. It just seems like they're going to have to keep tweaking this thing going forward to get some kind of balance. They got to make these first round games more competitive.
I have a thought.
Let's hear it.
What do you guys think of this? So the committee essentially applies like a rating to a win. So like if an Alabama beats Georgia, right, you go, well, that was a 5. That's 5 out of 5 victory. That's 5. If an SMU beats Louisville by 7 points, you go, that's like a 2 out of 5, right? And so now the win carries a weighting to it. So it's not just the win itself, it's now a weighting. And when it comes in at the end of the season, you go, all right, 9-win Alabama, I total up their ratings and I've got 27, whatever it is, average of 3-star victories. Then I go to SMU and I go, let's add up their 11 victories. Oh, that's only 22 because they were mostly average 2-star victories. Well, now Alabama's win looks better. And I know like that's essentially strength of schedule, but there's other factors you can add into it. So like I said, like a Georgia, for example, lost to Alabama by 7 points away from home. That might not be as bad a loss or anything like that. So like there's factors, there's, stadium factors, the score, there's a bunch of factors that level into the rating that you give it out of 5, and you can go back and change it. So like, for example, when Georgia Tech beat FSU week 0 this year, that would have been originally like a 5-star win because they were top 10 ranked. But as the season went on, you realize this team was actually not that good. So that now becomes like a 3-star or 4-star win. You can go back and change the ratings based on the season. And then that, I don't know, I think that gives more clarity to your point, Chris, about a team that might have more losses but had more impressive victories. It's not just a win is not just worth 1. There's a little bit more to it. So I don't know. And that kind of goes back to, is that like how the original system worked with the 1 and 2? There was like all these algorithms and things. You got to bring something in. Because again, SMU being at 10 is just insane.
I think we know what conference are the weaker conferences and are always going to be, as currently constructed, weaker conferences. I think you have to force these teams when they schedule their non-conference games to schedule them against other marquee opponents. I just think you're going to have to force their hand to do that because the Big 12 or the ACC or whatever, Mountain West, like their regular season schedule, they'll never be able to get it as tough as the SEC or the Big Ten right now. I just don't see them being able to change that around. So you either have to force these mega conferences, or you have to force them to schedule, games against better opponents in their non-conference schedule. Is the only way I see how to do it.
Yeah.
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 And just some of these schools, you can just tell. I mean, they're just not even ready for that kind of game. They haven't played it in that kind of game all season, and then they finally get there and they just fall flat on their face because they haven't played any teams of that caliber. And then they finally get there, and it's like they're not even in the same league, man. And it's hard to gauge it. I like your take on the point system, and I also see what Chris's point was like. Well, you just kind of can tell, which power conferences are where and where the teams are. But however they do it, they're going to have to figure that part out. But I do like both your thoughts on that.
Yeah. And like, it's easy to say, well, Big Ten and SEC are the two best, so like they get 5 teams each, whatever, and we figure it out. That's fine. But if you make that a rule, and then 20 years down the track, what happens if the Big 12 comes up and there's a bit of a drop? Then do you change it? You can't give that favorability to conferences, but if you give weighting to victories, then it does encourage teams to pick out a tougher opponent because they're like, all right, well, this will be a 5-star win, so these will be some points for us. Yeah, it's kind of like gambling, risk versus reward.
Y'all know more about college football. How far in advance do they have to schedule these non-conference opponents? How many, aren't they doing this like years in advance?
Yeah, sometimes they're 5 to 7 years in advance.
Why does it have to be that far in advance? Why can't they do something where, like, maybe the top teams in the playoffs, they get to pick their non-conference opponents in some kind of draft type format or what have you, like that, where, like, after you see kind of, closer, if you see this team's going to be a good team? I have no idea. How does anybody know what a team's going to be like in 5 years? It just seems like that's way too much time to schedule a football game in advance. I don't understand why you need that much time. Can somebody, do y'all agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think that was one of the rules that's something that's been going on for a very long time. They even do stuff in a decade in advance, Chris. I mean, sometimes they do a matchup for like Georgia Clemson 21-22, a home and home, and then it'll be like 20-29 and 20-30, home and home.
I don't know.
So I see what you're saying. That's even harder now with NIL and transfer portal because these teams are they're changing so often every year and evolving. Like, one program can have 3 wins, like an Indiana team, for example. Kurt Signetti brought in 30-something transfer players, from James Madison, where he came from. And I'm not saying, but I mean, he went from a 3-win team to an 11 win team within 1 year. And so it's crazy to, like you said, you have an Indiana on the schedule 1 year and you're like, oh, yeah, that's an easy win. And then you're playing them, the following year and they beat you. And so, like, it's interesting. But, yeah, they're going to have to maybe close that gap a little bit. I agree with you. It's too far in advance, I believe.
Yeah. All right. Well, third game we spoke about at the top. Texas 38, Clemson 24. Probably the best game of the weekend. Clemson scored first, and then Texas kind of went on a run, and they were up 28-10 at halftime. And then it was 31-24 at the beginning of the fourth quarter. So Clemson got themselves back within distance, but then, the very next, I think it was 2 plays later, a 77-yard touchdown from Jaden Blue, who had an outstanding game, and that kind of did it for him, and there's no coming back. But look, Clemson were competitive. They were more competitive than their other ACC team in SMU. So
they had down to 7, right? They had down to 7 in the fourth quarter, did they not?
31-24 at the start of the fourth quarter. Texas ran away with it. And, Texas, even though they are 5th, they're probably a top 4 ranked team this season. So they did well, but overall, Texas too good. With a bit of a quiet game from Quinn Ewers. Like, it wasn't nothing special. 1 touchdown, 1 interception, pretty efficient. But Jaden Blue, 14 carries, 146 yards, and 2 touchdowns that was a difference maker. So you can run the ball this time of year; it's always a plus. I thought Texas's stock went up this weekend because they rallied, they held a team that came out hungry, and they held their nerve, and they were pretty dominant in the end.
Yeah, I agree. They're upset. I mean, 2 losses to Georgia. They're salty right now, and they got a lot of fight in them. And I think they're hoping to get a third shot at Georgia.
In
the end. So We'll see.
I want
That would be quite the game, I think, if they meet a third time. Yeah, for sure.
And they can only meet in the national championship, right? That's the
correct.
last time. Yeah, well, that'll be interesting. But a good story here. You know, Klubnik is from Austin. Him and Quinn had played in a high school championship game, you know, a couple of years ago, which was a good story behind it. But yeah, in the end, too good. Chris, any thoughts on Clemson or Texas?
Yeah, I mean, the game, what was it, a 13.5-point spread, right? I think that's what it
Yeah.
was. Yeah, so I thought Clemson would cover. And it looked like, you know, I don't know, kept went up and down. I just think when you talk about Texas, I just think we're skewed a little bit because every time Georgia plays Texas, they shut their offense down. But Texas just puts points galore up against everybody else. And I don't know if it's just a matchup thing or what it is, but yeah, it just seems like this offense is just high flying, and they opened up as 13.5-point favorites against Arizona State. So it seems like everybody thinks they're going to continue to just keep putting points up on the board, and Vegas thinks this next game is going to be a rout as well.
Yeah, we'll talk about the next weeks in a bit. We'll go through all the bowls. Final game of the weekend, probably the most disappointing of them all because this is the one we were really looking forward to. It was the last game after 3 disappointing ones, so we were all kind of pumped up. But Ohio State really took it to them, 21-0 first quarter. You know, very efficient game from Will Howard, 24 of 29 for 311, 2 touchdowns. I think Ohio State kind of got that monkey off their back in terms of that pressure from the Michigan loss. Man, they look real good and disappointing from Tennessee. But at the same time, when you look at their quarterback, they've never been a team that will throw the ball. They're a strong defense and they run the ball a lot. But when you're down 21-0 in the first quarter, you're kind of on the back foot and they didn't really stand a chance.
I was highly disappointed in this one after I've been talking up the SEC all year and ripping the Big Ten. And it just looked like Ohio State, they were more physical and they were so much faster than Tennessee. Especially on like Ohio State's, the shocking thing was Ohio State's offense versus Tennessee's defense. They were just getting to the corners, outrunning them and just leaving them in the dust. And I was just shocked. I was absolutely floored when I saw that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I got to give it to Ryan Day. He had his guys ready to play. They were motivated. It seemed like they had something to prove, and they just seemed like a much better, like just talented team than Tennessee. And I was shocked by that. So you got to give them their credit. They beat the crap out of them.
Yeah, it was very disappointing. Hey, Ohio State proved that they belong. I know we've, quite SEC. Not you so much, Mark, but I know me and Chris, we talk up the SEC quite a bit. Thought it was gonna be a much closer game. Tennessee, like Chris said, they look. I mean, I've seen some games Tennessee's played in, and they have a decent football team, but they look like flat-footed. They didn't have like they wouldn't even be there. Ohio State was just running circles around them. I think once they got down to 14-0, I'm sure the defense was like, their offense wasn't doing anything. And just from a moral standpoint, you know how you have to just be like, okay, like they're up by 2 to 3 touchdowns now. Our offense isn't doing anything. To being a defensive player, you just know when you're just going out there, like
it's very frustrating.
Can we just stop them one drive? It's got to be frustrating. Their quarterback's very young. I think he's gonna get a lot better. And I think they can open up that offense. They're seeing games where they can pass the ball, but they do rely on that run a lot. And Ohio State just stuffed it every time. And yeah, disappointed.
Tennessee fans showed up too. They're out there in droves, man.
That was crazy.
We were all talking about it. Like, imagine you're a Tennessee fan. You paid all that money, travel to sit out there. How cold was it? It was free. It looked like it was freezing out there.
It was in the 20s.
And it just seemed like Tennessee would have had the momentum after Ohio State loses to Michigan. Ryan Day's job's on the line. Tennessee's kind of riding high, and they just came out there and just laid an egg. I don't know. It seemed shocking to me. I still just can't wrap my mind around it.
Yeah, I said it last week. I was like, the gap between the Michigan game and this game is either going to be good for them or bad for them. It's either going to make them really hungry to get out there and just want to prove all the doubters wrong, or it's going to be way on their mind and they're going to come out quiet. And that first drive was just, you could tell that Chip Kelly had drawn up that drive straight after the Michigan game. It's like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to march down the field, score a touchdown, and that's it. And that was a beautiful drive. That pass, like the back shoulder over the top, hit it a couple of times to Jeremiah Smith. That was really cool to watch. And yeah, I mean, Ohio is going to be a problem in these playoffs. Any final thoughts on this one?
I'm embarrassed enough. I'll move on if everybody else wants to.
All right, well, we can go into bowl season.
Hey, man, you're Big Ten. Well, not your whole Big Ten. 2 of your 3 Big Ten guys made it, so
it's going to be really good. I think it's going to be hopefully really good matchups between Notre Dame and Georgia and Ohio State and Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how the other games play out. I hope it's not like the first round. I'm hoping Boise State and Arizona State can make a game out of it.
Well, yeah, first game on New Year's Eve at 7:30, the Fiesta Bowl. Fiesta Bowl is that where is that played? Oh, it's Arizona State Farm.
Yes, yep.
Arizona Fiesta Bowl. Penn State and Boise State. Yes, Penn State 11-point favorites. What's the key to this game? I mean, obviously Ashton Jeanty is the key for Boise State. For Penn State, it's obviously stopping him, and I think it's if they get off to a hot start and all of a sudden running the ball is not as attractive to Boise State, they're playing from behind, it's going to be tough. But if Boise State can just hang in there, stay within a score, and just turn it into a grind, I give them a chance. I haven't been that impressed with Penn State. They were very good on the weekend. I'll give them that. But I don't know. If you get really physical with them, it could be a lot closer than what the line suggests. What are you guys' thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think I don't know about that 11-point line. That seems kind of big to me. I know that Penn State just beat the crap out of SMU, but Boise State had a tougher schedule than SMU. They were a better regular season team than SMU, and they have a guy who, like in any other season when there's no Travis Hunter, like would have been a runaway for the Heisman. So yeah. I definitely think they have some things going for them. So I think it's going to be a closer 11-point score. But yeah, when you got the Penn State, the Big Ten, the blue-blooded, whatever, I think that's kind of what we got going on here. But I would like to see it be a competitive game. I'd love for it to be a one-score game, and I think it will be. And that's what I'm hoping to see. I want to see, Giante. I want to see him play. I think I only watched like 1-2 or his games, but I mean the stats he puts up, it's just like Madden level stuff, So I want to see him in a big game. I think it'll be good.
Yeah. And Boise State, I mean, you want to talk about schedules. They played Oregon, lost by 3 points in that game. And if you remember that game, Oregon needed a punt return touchdown to get back into it. Like, it wasn't a blowout. It was a really, really close game. They beat UNLV, who ended up ranked, beat them, and then beat them again in the Mountain West Championship. So I think Boise State deserves to be where they are now. Everyone's going to say Penn State had a cakewalk to the semifinals, but they need to keep their eye on this one because I think it could be good. I'm looking forward to it. Derek, you with us? Anything else to add to this game?
No. I think I'm just, like I said, hoping for a good one. Like I said, I do agree Boise State's, that one thing that, like you said, they played a really good Oregon team and we're in that game. And you got to hang your hat on that one. It's like, okay, well, maybe they're legit, but we'll find out.
We'll find out. All right, New Year's Day, 1 o'clock, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl down here in Atlanta. I'll be at the game. Texas and Arizona State. Texas 13.5-point favorite. So obviously they're expecting a blowout here. But again, I mean, one person that really hasn't gotten too much talk is the Arizona State running back, Scabito. I mean, I watched him in the Big 12 championship. That dude was just like a pinball. It was bouncing off people. So again, you have a good running game and a solid running back. When it gets to the playoffs, it's just, I mean, I'll apply the NFL kind of, thought process to it. But when it gets to the playoffs and you have a running game, you can just hang in there. I think it's going to be, again, 13.5, I think is a lot. But at the same time, I doubted Texas against Clemson. I didn't think they were going to cover, and they kind of blew them out of the park. So, if Texas really wants to be real, they should come out here and win comfortably. But again, I don't know. Arizona's been on the run too. They beat some strong teams on their way to the Big 12 championship, and on the back of a good running game, I think it's going to be a tight one. But I'm hoping for a good game. That's all I really care about.
Yeah. They blew out a really good Iowa State team in the championship game. Pretty decent Iowa State team, but I'm not betting against Texas 2 times in a row. Made a fool once the first time. I'm taking Texas in this one. I'm not saying they're going to cover that point spread, but I'm not betting against them.
Yeah, I don't think they'll cover. Chris?
I think they will. I think Texas is on mission right now. I think they're pissed off after that SEC championship game, and I don't think they're going to get a lot of resistance until they play either Ohio State or Oregon. So I don't know. I don't see this one being a close one. I could see it being 14 points or more, but not 3-score game. I see it in the 14, 17 point range. But I just think Texas, they're just riding high right now, man. I think they're going to keep that momentum going.
Yeah. The Rose Bowl. It's probably one of the most exciting Rose Bowls in a long time. Oregon, Ohio State rematch, 32-31 when these teams first met. Should have met again in the Big Ten Championship, but Ohio State choked out of there. Ohio State, though, 2.5-point favorites to kick it off. That's interesting. Bit of momentum after their win last week, but I don't know. I think it's going to be a real tight one. It's a coin toss for me. Derek, what are you looking at here?
Same coin toss. I think it's gonna be kind of like the first one. Who knows? It can go either way. I think it's gonna be a great game, and I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, it's I can't even pick a winner on this one. To be honest with you, I can't. It can go either way.
I think it's going to be high scoring, right? I think it's going to be either the team that has the ball last is going to win it, or I think we might see one of those crazy overtime finishes, right? Where they're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. These teams were totally evenly matched during the regular season. The only thing, I guess you give Ohio State a little edge. It's hard to beat a team. We talk about it 3 times. It's hard to beat them twice in the same season as well. So I think that gives Ohio State probably a little edge. But I mean, is anybody going to be surprised if either of these team wins? I think anybody would be surprised if any team wins in a blowout. I think everybody's expecting this one to be a close one. I just would take the over. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored. What's the over? It's probably in the 50s, I would imagine. But I think there's going to be a lot of offense going on here.
Yeah. And I mean, the last game, they were Will Howard slid when the time ran out. Like, they were a second away from being in field goal range. So super close. I'm interested because this is really the first time in college football history where you're going to have a team that's well rested against a team that had to play last week. So there's a bit of momentum there. So it's like, is Oregon going to come out a little slow, ease their way into it, where Ohio State is just running right now? They're running high. That could be a problem if they get out to an early lead for Oregon to chase points. But I mean, if I'm Oregon, you're undefeated. You've already beat this team. You're the number one team. You've got to go into that confidence. And I agree with Chris. I think both teams are going to come out early with a statement, and it's going to end up a shootout. I think it's going to be a close one. I'm probably going to go Oregon just because they're undefeated, and everyone's they've kind of been like, everyone's been talking about Ohio State and how bad they were, and Texas and Georgia and Notre Dame. I feel like Oregon's gone under the radar a little bit, which is surprising for the only undefeated team. But
yeah, if you're Oregon, you got to be. I mean, you're underdog, right? So if I'm that coach and and I'm that team, I'm like, look, we're the number one team, right? I mean, we already beat this team. We won the Big Ten. We rocked everybody, and we come in as an underdog. It's like, come on, man! Like, they're not getting their due at this point. So I'd be pushing that narrative hard if I was Oregon.
Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts on that game?
Gonna be a good one.
Gonna be a good one. All right, that takes us into the last game of the quarterfinals, 8:45 p.m. on New Year's Day. Sugar Bowl down in Louisiana. Notre Dame, Georgia. Again, this line has flipped. It was Notre Dame before they played. Now it's Georgia by 2. You've got Georgia with a backup quarterback playing now. That's confirmed for the rest of the playoffs. So I think that's hurt their odds a little bit. But again, I think Georgia should be favorites here. I didn't see anything from Notre Dame that say, well, this is a team that can beat the hell out of you. Having said that, Georgia's been very inconsistent this year. They haven't actually been great against the run. Yeah, in a few games, they kind of got ate up. So I'm interested to see what happens here. But I think it's going to be very close. I think the line is fair. I'm going to give Georgia the edge just because I think they have a better defense. They can run the ball, and I think Gunner's going to surprise some people. Now he's got 2 or 3 weeks under his belt, adjusting the playbook to suit his needs. Very different quarterback to back. I think Georgia's going to come out and win and cover.
I like it.
I'm pumped.
Yeah, I'm going with UGA with this one. They cover. We had some much needed rest after that SEC championship game to get some players back too that have been banged up quite a bit. That have been playing, but they not 100%. So that having that time to heal up a little bit, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is going to be really, really critical.
Yep.
I, Gunnar Stockton, nobody, he hasn't had a lot of playing time, but the kid knows how to play football. He broke many Georgia State records in high school. And I don't know, man. Like I said, we talked about this when he came in that second half. The team had just like a lit fire underneath them, around him, and I think they knew that he needed that support. And I'm expecting a lot of these leadership guys, especially these older guys that have a lot of playing time, to pick up where maybe they lacking right now with Gunnar Stockton at quarterback, and especially on the defensive side of the ball, to know that, okay, we can't put the pressure all on our quarterback here on the offensive side. He's going to need our help. And Georgia has a very talented roster, and they are deep. And Kirby Smart knows how to recruit. And this is the reason right here. Like, so you have these players that can step up in big time games. So, hey, you can't spell sugar without UGA.
Yeah, that one ready.
Sugar Bowl victory for University of Georgia, and I believe Notre Dame has not beat Georgia in football ever.
Wow.
I believe that. I don't know what the record is. It's 0 and something. But I believe Notre Dame has never beat us. So I'm gonna take Georgia.
Also, there's very little footage out there of Gunnar Stockton, so game planning is tough for Notre Dame. Because again, Gunner's a very different quarterback to Carson Beck, so that there's going to be different plays that they haven't seen before, and I think that plays into Georgia's advantage. If you don't know what you're up against, then it's very difficult to stop against a good, to your point, Derek, good talented roster with overall mostly good coaching. I'm interested to see what happens. Chris, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, the only thing I say is I've been talking about Georgia all year, and I've been pretty spot on with my projections for them. I had them losing to Alabama. I had them beating Texas. I said that Georgia Tech game was a classic trap game, and we saw what happened with them. And I don't think this one's going to be close. I think Georgia is going to beat them by 2 scores. I think that Carson Beck, it's not the talent of the quarterback. Okay, Carson Beck is a talented thrower of the football. Okay, he's got all the tools. He's got all things. His decision making sucks. It's trash. The way it'll be 3rd and 1. You throw the ball 40 yards down the field. Like, it just doesn't make sense of what he does. He puts his team at risk for no reason whatsoever. They're going to get back to the Georgia football they do. They're going to run the ball. The quarterback's going to run the ball. They're going to play good defense, and they're going to keep the chains moving. So Notre Dame does not get as many opportunities. That's what they're going to do. Why Kirby never made the switch, I don't know. He gets in love with these quarterbacks and just defends them to the end. I think this is just going to be a good thing for him and that team in the end. And like what Derek said, I just love the way that team, like, they were hitting people harder when Gunnar was out there. I don't know the dynamics of that locker room. All I can see is what I watch on the TV screen, and what I watched was the team likes Gunnar more than they like Carson Beck. That's all I can say. That's all I can see. And Kirby is one of the best coaches on the defensive side of preparing for an opponent. He got to watch them play Indiana last week. If you tell me that they are not going to be ready to go, and the biggest issue with Georgia this year has been their first halves. Their first halves have been terrible. They make second half adjustments, and they're great in the second half. They are going to be ready to go from the first snap. And I just don't see any way that Notre Dame is going to be able to compete with that. I know there's a lot of people that have emotions on this game. That's just what I see just from watching the games. And, maybe I'll be wrong, but I've been pretty dead on accurate with these guys. And I just think they're going to be ready to go from the outgoing snap. And I think it's going to be at least a double-digit win.
Yeah. And I just looked it up, by the way. The 0-3, they've only played 3 times. First matchup was in 1981, I believe, and then they played twice, 2017, 2019. Georgia's 3-0.
Yeah, Notre Dame was just taking advantage of an Indiana team where the lights were bright, right? It's a huge stage. You're not getting that with Georgia. Both these teams have been on big stages. Georgia, they've all been there before. So it's just, you're not going to be able to take advantage of a team that hasn't been there before. Georgia's going to come out. They're going to be ready to go. So, we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, hopefully the next games are better than the first round. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm not happy that we got a 12-team playoff, but hopefully next year there's a slight change to the rankings and we get some better games the first round. But quarterfinals, we got two really big ones that I think are going to be awesome. Another two that you never know, but we're looking forward to it. All right, NFL time. And Chris, I'm going to start with your Packers, okay? Because they're fresh off a really big victory. And let me tell you, when Spencer Rattler got on the podium and said that they took some meetings in their freezer, I was like, oh, danger game for the Packers. Danger game. And all that freezer prep for a big fat duck on the scoreboard. Chris, Green Bay was looking good. I mean, I know we didn't really talk about the Seattle game last week because I was a hurt, disappointed man. But you went into Seattle against a team that was on a 4-game winning streak and beat the hell out of them on both sides of the ball. Do the same here against New Orleans. Take care of the bad teams. 34-0. Got yourselves in the playoffs. I don't think you're a team that I don't think the Packers. As I said, the Packers are a team I don't think people want to face in the playoffs. They keep talking about the Rams being a team you don't want to face. I think the Packers are the most dangerous team outside of the division winners. How are you feeling about your team?
I feel great about them right now. I think the wild card, I don't think it's that big of a factor. They won on the road in the playoffs last year, and they're the youngest team in football. They were last year, the youngest team in football this year. When you're young, you're dumb, so you don't really care. You're not thinking too hard about that stuff. The biggest thing with the Packers, this is the healthiest season we've had as a squad in a long time, right? Other than Jair, which he's supposed to be back. I talk about Jair a lot. He's literally the third most important player on our team. The rookie draft class that we got this year, they've all been outperforming. I know Green Bay fans, you guys probably don't know his name's Edgerrin Cooper. He was a linebacker from Texas A&M that we got in the second round. He's been the NFC Defensive Player of the Week twice this year, not the Rookie of the Week, the Defensive Player of the Week. And he's just playing out of his mind right now. The pass rush has been the best it's been all year in the last couple weeks. And Josh Jacobs, I know we keep talking about Saquon, we talk about Derrick Henry. Josh Jacobs was the perfect match for this team. He is a bruising back. And I just think when the weather gets cold, and if you look at the first quarters of these Packers games, this man's he gets more touches in the first quarter than any other player in football. Position player that's not a quarterback. So I love LaFleur. I think they have a great game plan. I think Love he's cut out all of the turnovers because he's playing mistake-free football. He's not winning them the games by throwing it, but they know what they're doing, right? They're running the ball. They're playing good defense. They're rushing the passer. Our man McManus has only missed one field goal all year. He hit a 56-yarder last night in freezing weather. So I definitely feel like the trajectory is high for this team. I would absolutely love to see them at least beat one of the big boys before the playoffs start, right? We lost to Detroit twice. We lost to the Eagles once. We lost to Minnesota once. And now we have Minnesota this weekend. And that's the last game we get because we got the Bears, which we're not going to talk about because they suck. But that's the last chance we get to beat a marquee opponent in the NFC. And I think if they won that game, that would give them some different momentum and confidence going into the postseason.
Yeah. That's good. It's a good rundown of the Packers. A young team. Jacobs has been good. I think they finally found their identity. I think maybe they were leaning in too much on Love. I know LaFleur is an offensive guy, right? He likes to throw the ball, but maybe it's, Love, you don't need to throw 300 yards for us to win. We can win other ways. I mean, against Seattle, that first drive, I think Love threw the ball once, and it was just Jacobs down the field. It was like, it was tough.
I love Josh Jacobs. We had Aaron Jones, and a lot of people are scratching their head. Why, Aaron Jones gets hurt, he's a great player. I love Aaron Jones, but when he gets hurt, he doesn't play. When Josh Jones gets banged up, Jacobs gets banged up, he plays, and he's played every game for this year, and he takes those hits, and he's those guys. He makes a 1-yard gain into a 4-yard gain, and it might not look big on the stat sheet, but it's huge when you need to keep these chains moving in these games. So I'm not going to put a lot of stock in beating the Saints. I mean, Spencer Rattler, there was no Kamara, there's no Olave. I mean, they have nobody left on their team. But that's what you have to do this time of year. You got to beat the bad teams, and you got to beat them in convincing fashion. And that's what they did. So I think it was a good game, a good win for them. And they got to play Minnesota that has 13 wins, unbelievably.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Minnesota. And just a quick shout out to Brian Gunst. I don't think I've seen a GM who was more scrutinized over his decision making. Like, how many years do we hear, oh, they've never drafted a wide receiver in the first round. Oh, they drafted Jordan Love when they were so close to a Super Bowl and they should have picked a wide receiver to help out Aaron Rodgers. And why'd you sign Josh Jacobs and let Aaron Jones go? Like, he is really scrutinized, but I struggle to find a decision he's made that hasn't turned out better for the team. And like you said, you have the youngest team in football, and you're a team now that is on the rise and threatening a Super Bowl this year. You've got another 5 to 10 years ahead of you of like this domination if you can keep everyone together. So
they talked about on the broadcast that playoff game they played against Dallas last week. 51 of the 53 players on that roster in that game were all drafted by Gutekunst. So, like, I mean, he knows how to draft. And then they added McKinney and Josh Jacobs. So it seems like they know when to sign the free agents or what have you. So, yeah, I love him. Yeah, getting rid of Aaron Rodgers was the best thing that ever happened to us. So.
McKinney's a smoky for defensive player of the year as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's had a good one. So, all right, let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals. Derek, I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a chance. And this
Mark's Bengals are back.
There's a chance.
Mm-hmm.
They need Indianapolis and Miami to lose one more game, and Denver, but they actually play Denver next week, so they'll take them out of the equation. The only thing that could stop them is Indy has New York Giants, and then they have, I believe, the Jags or someone else in their division. So I don't know if they're going to lose another game. Miami has.
Well, it's pretty simple, right? They have to win out, right?
They just
and
have
then
to
they
win
need
out.
the Chiefs to beat the Broncos.
No,
right?
they have to win out.
No,
and
they just need Indy and
Indianapolis and Miami both have to lose
2 games.
a game.
Yeah, but they're gonna. I mean, come on, Indianapolis and Miami.
But that's what
I think that's what Mark's saying. The Indianapolis Colts have a very easy remaining schedule.
Are you listening to me, Chris, or are you just off with the
but it's not just Indy and Miami. They have to pass Denver.
But they play Denver, so they will pass
them. Once.
Right. If they beat Denver, they'll be ahead of them.
How is that possible?
Is it not?
Because Denver has 9 wins right now, and Cincinnati has 7. So Bengals would be 8
I thought I read yesterday it was like 14% chance. I thought I saw that they have to win out. The Bengals
have to win out.
Yeah,
and the Broncos have to lose out because the Broncos already have 9 wins. So the Broncos play the Bengals and the Chiefs.
And the Chiefs. That's right. Yeah, you're right.
The Chiefs, if the Chiefs beat the Broncos and the Bengals obviously beat the Broncos and win their last game, then the Bengals are in and the Broncos are out.
All right, and the Colts and Dolphins still have to lose. They both have to lose one of their remaining 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the Colts have the Giants and the Jags. So they've got to lose one of those games. And the Dolphins have the Browns and the Jets. So, stranger things have happened. And I will say, what was it, like a couple of years ago, Phillip Rivers on the Colts, they needed to beat the Jags in the last round to make the playoffs. And this is when the Jags were number 1 pick before Trevor Lawrence. Jags smoked them. The Jags seem to have the wood over Indy, so I wouldn't put that against them. We'll see. Stranger things have happened, but Chris, I've been talking to you. Out of all those teams, and Derek, I think you'd agree too, out of all those teams, the team I would least want to play is Cincinnati. So if you're the Bills, who are looking like they're going to get the number 2 seed and play the 7, man, I am begging.
Woo!
I'm begging for something to go my way to keep those Bengals out of Orchard Park, because
absolutely, and it's not the Bengals, it's Joe Burrow. You do not want to play Joe Burrow in a playoff game. I mean, he'll put up 5 touchdowns and 400 yards. He's got Jamar Chase. I mean, they can outscore. We talked about this weeks ago for when we thought they were eliminated. They can outscore any team in football. It's their defense that has just been atrocious all year long. And when you have a couple quarterbacks that have questionable postseasons, I know we're going to talk about it, but sometimes these quarterbacks, they get a little leery, they get a little tight, and sometimes these games become like you can't put as many points up on the board. So, no, I'm with you. I don't think they'll make the playoffs because I think the Chiefs are going to have the number 1 seed locked up by then. And I think they would rather have the Broncos in the playoffs than the Bengals. So I think they'll probably give their division foe, the Broncos, a gift. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to see the Bengals in the playoffs. I mean, if you ask me what I'd rather see, I want to see Bills Bengals first round 2 versus 7. Bills
also,
people
the
don't want to see
Bengals are just like the one team, in my opinion, that just, if there was ever a deserving team to make it in, you know what I mean? I'm like, to me, I just feel like they're like the opposite of the Kansas City Chiefs this year. They've lost so many close ones where the Chiefs have won those close ones. Like they're a good team. Obviously, we know that their defense needs to step up, but their offense is just like you said, just one you don't want to face.
That's the difference, though, right? To your point, Chiefs have been pretty bad on offense, amazing on defense. Bengals have been amazing on offense, disappointing on defense. Which team's 14-1 or whatever it is, and the other team's struggling to make the playoffs. So, like, you've got to get your defense right. You've got Jamar Chase, who's going to get the Triple Crown, probably the best receiver in the league at the moment. Joe Burrow, we spoke about him. You have the most amazing offense in the league, but you're losing games 44-38 and 47-44. And now you're in a position where you might not make the playoffs, but we'll see. I thought it was interesting that there was a chance, and then when I looked at the scenarios, I'm like, it's not out of the question. So we'll see.
Obviously, they only have 7 wins, so nobody talks about it. But Joe Burrow has had the best season of any quarterback in football this year. I mean, if you look at his stats, nobody looks at his stats. But yeah, if you did, I mean, if he had 10 wins right now, I just think he would be the runaway MVP.
Oh, for sure.
And he is so important on his team. How many wins would this team have? They have it's the worst defense I think I've ever seen. And just for them to even have a chance at this point, that's tantamount to what he's done for this team.
Mm-hmm.
So it's crazy. His offensive line, you watch the game, their offensive line is bad. Their running game has been hit and miss. I know it's been better here lately, but it's been him and Jamar Chase just keeping that team afloat.
I don't think there's anyone better in the league than Joe Burrow at escaping pressure. Like, just the way he moves in the pocket to me is unreal. Did at LSU a lot too. And then Jamar Chase, that connection that they have, to me is the best in the league by far. The stats back that up. So I wouldn't want to play him.
Keep adding money to the pocket, but buddy, guys, I don't know how much. I don't know how much. Jamar Chase.
Oh yeah,
they should.
How much does he get paid now after this season?
Oh boy, yeah, they really messed up there, the Bengals. It's kind of funny, isn't it? The Bengals like, oh, let's wait till next season and see how your value is, and that was a bad bet. And that dude's going to be getting at least $30 million a year. He's going to get at least Justin Jefferson money, and he can probably get more now.
Yeah, he's got to be the highest pay. He's got to break. Mm-hmm. He's got to break Justin Jefferson. I wouldn't say. I said they're 1 and 2 definitely as for wide receivers in football. But you can, next man up. You got to pay him more.
That's it. All right. Division rival Baltimore and Pittsburgh played. Bit of a close game up until around the third quarter. Baltimore ran away with it. Lamar Jackson really played his hand and put forward his MVP case with another 3 touchdown performance. Did throw an interception, but on the year he's only thrown 4. He looked really good. Baltimore's defense really started to play over the last couple of weeks, and their offense has been going all season. Big win for them. It also puts them right back in the division conversation, which last week I said was the only thing that was stopping Lamar from being the MVP favorite. Pittsburgh have Kansas this week. Baltimore will play Houston, who are beat up big time. Ravens are coming good at the right time.
Yeah, especially on the defense.
The Ravens in a while. Yeah.
I know, but
the ball, like, they definitely, we've talked about their offense. That's always been the defense. We kind of dialed in like, hey, they're, Baltimore's obviously always been known for having a great defense, and the last few weeks have really shown up. So, yeah, I agree with you, Mark. They're reaching, good stride at the moment, and especially heading into the playoffs. They're a very dangerous team. Yeah, I wouldn't want to play them either right now, to be honest with you.
I'll give credit where it's due. Their defense has been better. Okay, their defense has been better. I mean, they were the worst in football, so there's only anywhere you can go from up. But as the weather's gotten colder, they have been better. I still think, they split with Pittsburgh. I think anybody could have predicted that. Like a lot of these teams, they split their divisional matchups when they're good teams, and the game was closer than 34-17. Russ, he was running the ball, right? They're about to score a touchdown. He gets to the 2. They were down by 7. He gets rocked and fumbles the ball at the 2-yard line. Baltimore takes it, and they score a touchdown on that next possession, and that's pretty much ball game at that point. So,
just quickly, they said that was the second worst goal line decision that Russell Wilson has made in his career. So
I'm
anyway.
still a Steelers believer. I think TJ Watt was kind of playing on one leg, and Russell Wilson needs George Pickens. He needs him to be able to throw the ball down the field. There is no replacement for that guy on that team right now. So I feel okay about, my Steelers. I'm not going to be as gung ho as I have been on them after they lose back-to-back games. But no, Baltimore, yeah, they've looked good. I still got to see them in the playoffs. I just have to see them in the playoffs, though, before I can say that this team can make a Super Bowl run. I just want to see one game. I'm not asking for a lot, okay? I just want to see one little playoff game.
You're
I just want
asking
to see
for them, like they have to make it to the Super Bowl for you to even say
No, I
anything
want
good
to
about the Ravens.
I want to see how Lamar in a wild card game, because right now they're still a wild card, right? So obviously they have a chance to win that division. Pittsburgh has a tough game against Kansas City. So even if they win the division, they still got to play the opening, week or what have you. I just want to see how Lamar plays in one playoff game. That's all I want to see. I just want to see one. And I'd be able to make my mind up on them. But the regular season, I just can't put stock in the regular season as much because they've done this. They do this every year. They're up there every year. So
yeah, I think the difference this year for them is a little bit more diverse in their offense. The first year they made the playoffs when Lamar got MVP. Have you ever seen a team revolve around one player more, both running and pass? He was running rings over people. Last year, same thing. He won MVP, so it really revolved around him. This year, you've got Derrick Henry. You've got a really good tight end combination with Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews who's come into it a little bit. So I think when it gets to the playoffs, what I would expect to see from them is a little bit more diverse play that can take a bit of pressure off Lamar.
See, I don't want to see that though.
I know you don't want to see that.
No, I want to see them run the ball. That's the issue. Is like he has been a better thrower this year, but I don't want them to fall in love with it, and I don't want to see him throwing it more than like 25 times in a game. Like for them to be successful, right? I want to see Derrick Henry getting 20 plus carries in every game, and Lamar running the ball. I just think the issues they've lost in the playoffs is because he's thrown the ball too many times. But like when you're saying that now they're more diverse, that just means to me is what you're saying is you want to see Lamar throw the ball even more. And I don't want it for them to be successful. I don't want to see that.
No, I'm saying that if a team in the playoffs, like if Lamar gets shut down by throwing the ball early or they shut down his running, remember that year he won MVP and they played the Titans in a divisional round and everyone thought it was going to be a cakewalk and they shut down Lamar. They had no answer. That was it. Same last year. I mean, last year in the championship against Kansas City, it was a tight game. Their defense killed it, but Kansas City shut them down. And they lost 17-10. So this year, I feel like they've got Derrick Henry, so they should be utilizing, like, if the passing's working, stick with it. But if they're shutting down Lamar, let's move to Derrick Henry and start running the ball more and start spreading it out. So I think there's more opportunity for them to change up their game plan depending on what teams have schemed against them. So I think they'll be better set for it.
I'm just happy that you jumped on that Lamar MVP train with me. Choo choo, you jumped on the train. I convinced you, so I really appreciate that. That's all I'm going to say because we talked about that, and now all of a sudden you're Lamar. You're a Lamar guy now, MVP now. So I'm glad you jumped on board.
I mean, I bet on him to win because he was such great value, and it was more of a value thing. I still can't believe that Josh Allen was minus 900 last week. I just thought that was crazy to plus 650. I mean, look, 1 week swing, it's already come in a little bit. You want to talk about the Bills then?
No, only if you want to talk about the Bills.
Yeah, Bills is next. Let's talk about Bills. All right.
Yeah, let's talk about them. Impressive.
They won.
W.
They won.
Yeah, that's what you could say. Yeah, they won.
It wasn't impressive.
Did I watch that? No, you were watching. Did you watch that game? Because I watched every snap.
Seattle was playing, so I was really watching Seattle. But in the ad breaks, I was flicking that between. Chris, if you watched it, then you take it away. What'd you make of it?
It's classic Buffalo.
Yep.
First of all, Patriots jumped out to a 14-0 lead with Drake May. Drake May was tearing up the Bills' defense, which the Bills' defense has been terrible as of late. And then the Bills, they got lucky to win this game because Drake May threw a backward pass and the ball was just sitting there or whatever, and the Bills got gifted a little touchdown. Josh Allen looked absolutely pedestrian. He looked terrible in the game, and nobody can convince me otherwise that he didn't look like that. And then I have to hear, the man hit his funny bone. They're acting like he broke his freaking right arm out there, and he scrambled. He tapped his little elbow on the ground, and then all of a sudden he can't throw the ball anymore. He couldn't throw the ball in this game before that happened. So this is what Josh Allen does, right? He's just up and down, up and down, up and down. And I mean, Amari Cooper, I don't even know why they traded for him at this point. The guy gets he's only playing 45% of the snaps right now. So, I mean, the running game and that defensive touchdown bailed them out of losing a home game to the Patriots. So if you're telling me that this is a game that gives Allen, makes him he deserves MVP, and tells me that they're like going to make a run in the playoffs, nothing I saw in that game impressed me at all for what the Bills are supposed to be doing here, which is ramping up for the postseason. They're not ramping up. Little guy's got a boo-boo on his elbow and had it in a sling. Get out of here. It's ridiculous.
Derek, I mean,
it was I think it was a little bit of an off game. I mean, but in the day out, I mean, obviously Josh Allen did not look nowhere near what we've seen him do. I think he had through 150 something yards. I think 16 of something.
29, I think, about 55% completion.
Obviously, like Chris, I get what you're saying. I mean, that's a pitiful performance. It's hard to put any weight on a Buffalo Bills team that comes out like that. It doesn't give you a lot of confidence the closer we're getting to the playoffs. I obviously have given the Bills a lot of credit. I still think Josh Allen is a great quarterback, but that play has to get better. And their defense I'm really starting to worry about their defense. I mean, I know they haven't looked great in the last few weeks. Chris has been talking about, and I'm like, okay, they'll come around. Well, they haven't. And yeah, I'm worried.
Nobody talks about their defense but their defense, they haven't had as many injuries as Detroit, but their injuries are stacking up in their secondary.
Right.
And they can't defend the pass against a Drake May.
Like, you've been talking about it for weeks, but I'm just saying, I thought, like, okay, like they'll come up with some type of game plan. Like they have to come up with something where their defense will step up, and it just hasn't. And so I'm just saying, like, as much credit as I've given them, I am starting to understand what you've been saying. It's like, yeah, I'm losing some confidence in the Buffalo Bills the closer we're getting to the playoffs.
Well,
the momentum is swinging the other way.
It's like the Cam Ward effect, right? Like, does Josh Allen have to play like a superhero and score 3 touchdowns rushing and 3 touchdowns passing and a receiving touchdown? Is that what he needs to do for them to be good? Because their defense isn't good. Yeah, got to get the defense right, because you're not going to beat a Baltimore. Or
and that
City.
game I saw, that was the first time I've seen him in a while start pressing. I know he's cut down the turnovers this year. He threw one terrible interception, and he threw another one that went right into a defender's hands that they dropped. That's the first time I had seen him in a long time like start pressing, look like the old Josh Allen who just throws it to nowhere for no reason and starts making bad interceptions. They got the Jets this week, so I got the Bills on upset alert. I took the Jets in the points.
Whoa.
I think I know, y'all know my feelings about Aaron Rodgers.
That's a big deal.
But I think the way that Devontae's playing right now and that Garrett Wilson against that depleted Bills secondary, I think the Jets could put some points up against this secondary. So
all right. Boom.
And shout out to Drake May. He had played a heck of a game in that game too. So
yeah,
he was pretty impressive.
The Patriots got themselves a quarterback. They just need to get the rest of the team in good place.
Yeah, they need everything else. They have a quarterback. They need absolutely everything else.
All right, this week we got some Christmas Day games. Kansas and Pittsburgh is a big one. Big game for honestly. I think Pittsburgh can win this game. I think it's going to be so low scoring. Over under at 43.5 is way high. I think it's going to be like a 15-12 type game. I don't know, and I'm pretty sure Pickens is back this week.
He's supposed to be back. They said he was going to be back. He's supposed to be back. It's a short week, obviously. They're playing on Wednesday.
But so is Kansas.
Yeah, so that's true.
I say you're talking about Pickens being back.
Yeah, I'm talking about Pickens. Yeah, for Pickens.
Short week, yeah. No, I'm excited for this one. I think it's going to be real close. Probably not going to get to watch it. That's a tough sell. That's a tough sell to the wife on Christmas Day, but I'll do my best. That's the one I want to watch. And then in Baltimore and Houston. Lamar Jackson said he's watching Beyonce at halftime, so make sure that the game plan's in place because he's not going to be there. On Netflix, first time on Netflix. Interesting.
All right, Netflix. All right, we're going to stream these games.
Yeah, they really messed up. They really messed up with the Jake Paul fight. So
yeah,
I hope they've done better.
Oh my God, that was just a boxing match with Mike Tyson. Imagine if these games are
both are coming through Netflix.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
They better get their crap together.
And then also shout out. So unfortunately for Seattle, they need the Cardinals to beat the Rams this week for us to be any chance.
Y'all play first, though. Y'all play Thursday.
We play first. We can put some pressure on.
Yeah.
But if on Saturday night the Rams go out and beat Arizona, unfortunately, because of strength of schedule, that will be Seattle's season done. Which, 2 weeks ago I was talking Super Bowl. I'll still support them.
Look,
and
if y'all can't whoop this Bears team, then y'all don't deserve to go to playoffs. I mean, that Bears have been just absolutely terrible. So
that's what I'm nervous about. They haven't won since October. I'm like, there's no better team to beat than Seattle. So we'll see. Big game for Green Bay and Minnesota. You mentioned it earlier. This is potential playoff. Minnesota as well. They're still in the race for not just the division, number 1 seed.
They went out. They're number 1 seed.
They went out number 1 seed. So big
they
game
play
for
Detroit.
That. And you mentioned Green Bay really need to get that victory against a playoff-bound team. So this one's going to be big. On top of just division rivalry, there's a lot more implications here. Having watched Minnesota against Seattle last week, man, they're a good team. And I know, all season, I feel like we've been like, oh, they're on a hot streak, but they're going to fall off. They're going to fall off, and they'll have that bad game and lose. But, I mean, they're 13-2. They're a good team. Sam Darnold is a damn good quarterback.
We don't have to talk about it. We don't have time. But I was hearing on one of the broadcasts, they were talking about the debate of Coach of the Year. It's not a debate.
It's not a debate.
It's Kevin O'Connell, and it's not even close. They are doing so much with less talent than any other team I've ever seen. So you got to give that head coach all the credit. They deserve 100%. It. I mean, God, they're minimum they win 13 games. They can win 15 games with 15 Sam Darnold. Games. And I still can't name a player on their defense. It's just a bunch of guys who are playing together as a unit. So
I mean, Brian Flores is going to be getting some interviews as well, which I think for him, the way he ended in Miami, the whole racial thing with the Broncos and how he felt like he wasn't really interviewed. The Tua story came out about how Brian told him that he was awful and terrible and all these things. So I think for him to bounce back, get this defense rolling.
I think this is the game for the 1
team
seed
he would go to. If it was a potential, what team do you think?
Chicago,
New York Jets are going to have openings. Vegas might have an opening.
Yeah.
Tennessee's a new coach this year, so maybe they'll give them a chance. There'll be some openings.
I just think this is the Vikings' game to win to be the 1 seed. Detroit is depleted. They were in a close game with Detroit, barely lost. I think they would have a clear edge against Detroit in that last game of the year. I think this is the game for them to win for the 1 seed. I think if they win this game, I think they will be the 1 seed, which is crazy.
Yeah. And I know Sam Darnold has Addison and Justin Jefferson, right? So he's got talent around him. He's got a good O-line, but his decision making has improved tenfold. He knows when to throw it away. He knows when to throw a check down, and because of that, Seattle weren't just targeting Justin Jefferson and Addison. The first drive was Addison. So then we shut that down, and then it just opened up Justin Jefferson. This team can attack you from all over the field. Aaron Jones is a serviceable running back as well. They're dangerous, man. I know everyone.
Hawkinson's getting healthier.
Oh,
He was the best tight end in football. He came, halfway through the year. He's getting healthier every week. So, yeah, I got to give him credit, man. I wrote them off a long time ago, but they just keep stringing W's along. So,
maybe we'll wrap up with this then. And this is a three-way conversation. What do Minnesota do next season at quarterback? Because Sam Darnold's off contract. He's going to attract a lot of interest. What do they do? They've got J.J. McCarthy, who's their first-round pick, who's going to be coming back from injury. Do they pay? I mean, the obvious answer is Darnold is their quarterback because he's played well, but you're going to have to pay him, $30-40 million, maybe even more.
I think if they think that J.J. McCarthy, which they have more information on him, if they think he can be serviceable, I think they want to run it like the way the 49ers run it, right? I think Kevin O'Connell thinks he can run this system with any kind of level talent quarterback. So if I'm the Vikings, I'll pay Darnold in the 20s. I'll go up to maybe 30. But if he's going to demand so much money that it's going to kill my cap and I can't put talent around him, I'm going to let him walk. I'm not going to pay him $50 million a year. Same with the 49ers, right? I'm just not going to do that when I have a quarterback I drafted, right? So I give him a 2-3 year deal, maybe $100 million, something along that line for 3 years or whatever, right there in that $30 million range. But I'm not paying him Kirk Cousins money. I'm just not. Maybe they will. I wouldn't do it. I think it'd be bad for them.
Someone will, though. That's the thing. Someone's going to pay. Derek, what teams do you think would offer Sam Darnold a $40-50 million contract?
Browns.
Oh, no, the Browns.
Titans, Browns. I mean,
Raiders.
You could even you potentially say Saints. I mean,
so the Raiders are going to be picking in the top 3. So they're gonna have a Sanders or a Cam Ward, right?
Yeah, you got 2 quarterbacks you're going to take in, right? So yeah.
So that's to me, that's the Giants and Vegas. Those 2 teams are going to get those quarterbacks.
Yeah,
I like Tennessee. I think Tennessee is an option for them.
Yeah,
I'd be worried if I was Sam Darnold because quarterback play down there hasn't been great since Arthur Smith left. I don't know who their own coordinator is, but if you're Sam Darnold, the way that Kevin O'Connell has got him playing the way he is, you need to make sure that your next move isn't just a cash grab. There's a coaching system there that you can implement yourself into. I don't know.
Sam Darnold isn't just this 1 year guy, though. He has a history. He cannot be successful without talent around him, right? I mean,
yeah, but Sam Darnold got a lot of flack from him playing with the Jets, and so did Geno Smith, and they turned out to be pretty decent quarterbacks once they got away from that team and that franchise.
Yeah, but you see him turn around a team like the Titans, though, because they seem very Jetish to me.
I mean,
I don't, exactly.
Yeah, it's going to take more than that, obviously. I mean, that's a makeover. That's an extreme makeover. Okay, someone's got to come in and kind of make some changes there. But that's the only. I mean, honestly, y'all. I mean, look at the rest of the. I don't see where else he would go. I mean, if you look at teams, I mean, Mark's got a point with the Raiders drafting, having a top 3 pick. I mean, where else would he go besides the Titans?
So I got 3 teams outside of the Titans that I think he could go to. And I might be swinging for the fences here. One is Indianapolis. I don't know if they're in on Anthony Richardson. And I think they have a pretty good team to win now. So if you're Indy, maybe it's like, let's give him a year or 2 years and see how it goes and go from there. Like a short contract. Put Anthony Richardson back to the bench and see what happens. Again, that's a bit of a smoky, but it's out there. Number 2, this is even more out there, 49ers. And the reason I say that is because I think Purdy is going to be asking for $60 million, right? And I don't think he's worth that, but someone might actually end up paying them. So if the 49ers have this stacked roster outside of that with all this, cap money going towards so many different players, can get a $20 million, $30 million discount on Purdy and get Darnold, who's already played for them, I see them being, an opportunity to. And then third, which is really out there, but I don't know, Seattle Seahawks. The reason why I say that, again,
lower.
Geno is off contract at the end of this year. Right. I don't know what we're going to do. They'll want to re-sign him. There's no one in the draft to get. Seattle's in a bit of a weird, mediocre situation where they're not, like, Geno's good. And I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. He's made some bad decisions this year. But if he decides that he wants to go and get paid, I don't think Seattle's paying him. And so then I wonder if they then enter the race for a Sam Darnold just because.
I think I know who y'all are getting next year.
Who?
You know who it is.
I don't.
Come on. Come on. You know.
You're not going to say
Kirk Cousins is going to be a Seattle Seahawks.
We're not getting Kirk Cousins.
If you want to bet me, Darnold versus Cousins, of which one y'all get, okay? If you don't get either, it'll be a wash. All right, but I'm just Kirk has 9 lives. He's a cat. He's got 18 lives. He's like 2 cats. I just can see it. I don't know. Something tells me that he's gonna spring up there in Seattle. I think it's a good fit. So I think
is there a world that Cousins? I mean, I know they have to pay him that $10 million if they don't release him before.
He's getting released.
He's gone. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying that there's some talk out there that possibly they hold on to him to be like a mentor to Phoenix, but
I don't think so.
That's an expensive mentor.
I know, but I mean,
yeah,
he's already got how much guaranteed? I mean, he
got $90 million to play 14 games. So
okay, yeah.
You see the stats like Michael Penix is like an Atlanta Falcons quarterback who's left-handed, whose last name could easily sound like a male genital. Hey, Michael Vick reincarnated this back. Hey, Panic had a good game. Good for him.
Hey, you can. Atlanta will send you Kyle Pitts with Kirk Cousins. You get 2 for 1. Okay,
Lord
that guy
almighty.
is terrible.
Did you see they asked him? I think they asked him about that, and he's like, "Yeah, I guess gotta do a better job." Michael was just playing it off, like I didn't hit him right in the hands, with it.
If there are any Kyle Pitts defenders at this point, I want to hear them. I'd love to hear a comment. Y'all reach out because I want to know what anybody sees in Kyle Pitts at this point to tell me he's not an absolute bust. So. Sorry.
Especially after what Brock Bowers has done in his rookie season.
Oh,
he hit the ground running. He's doing what Kyle Pitts was supposed to do.
Yeah.
He's been terrible.
Terrible.
All right.
Good show.
I think that's just about going to do us. So, Merry Christmas, everybody. We'll be back next week. We'll probably be back just before the quarterfinals, I think, or just after. We'll figure it out. But we'll be back next week. Again, another big slate of NFL games. We'll look out for that. Merry Christmas, everyone. And
I just want to shout out to any new subscribers, or if you're watching, please subscribe if you like the show. Leave a comment. If there's any topics you guys want us to talk about, please mention it, and we're happy to try to fit it into our podcast here.
Very interactive.
Thank you, guys.
We engage. All right, guys, have a good one.
Merry Christmas.